So I am in the office wrapping up this video, and if you are planning on buying or selling a home after June 13th and you don't watch this video, if you have purchased a home, let's say in the last 5 to 6 years, you guys, actually maybe not even that long, maybe like 2 to 3 years, you may already be familiar with the fact that right now on a real estate sales contract, you have an option to go repair procedure, you have an option to go with due diligence, and you have an option to go as is. Starting on June 13th, the as is option is going away. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, why is the change? Repair procedure wasn't really that big a deal. I purchased a house, it was pretty easy. Well, in truth, it was easy for a lot of home buyers and home sellers, but really, in my opinion, it really came down to the agent that you used, how well they explained what repair procedure was, and how well they managed your expectations after you got that home inspection report and realized that there was a lot more wrong with the house than you were expecting. One of the big things, and a lot of times what I saw on a lot of the repair requests that I would get for some of my listings, were the fact that home buyers were interested in adding items that were not covered under repair procedure. There's a lot of different things that people were trying to say were or should be covered under repair procedure that just weren't, and that caused a lot of headaches for buyers and sellers. And the powers that be in the Charleston area said, hey, let's get rid of this confusion. Let's go due diligence. Now, you may be wondering what exactly due diligence is. Due diligence simply means that any and everything can be negotiated during a repair request. So if, for example, I wanted you to change the carpet or, add some new hardwood in an area that maybe the hardwood had been damaged, that's now officially on the block for acceptable repair requests. The big difference under something like repair procedure, a cosmetic thing like, scratched hardwood would not be allowed. Now, with these new contract changes, it is. What happens now under due diligence is you as the buyer have one date to remember and one very important date. So if you are using an agent, I'm not speaking ill of any agents in particular, but if you are using an agent that is not very communicative, just cut this part out. Cut it out. If you are using an agent that kind of lacks in the communication department, you might want to make sure you're on top of them because if you miss this deadline, there's going to be a lot of things that can happen, and we will talk about all that in just a second. So the big thing and the most important thing is you have one date to remember. This is a specific date. So things like to be determined, leaving blanks to be determined after the contract has been signed, putting X number of calendar days or X number of business days will no longer be acceptable on a real estate contract here in South Carolina. You will have to put one very specific, very firm deadline. Now, what needs to be accomplished by that deadline? Well, all of your inspections, all of the estimates you need to have done, and this is the kicker, and the repair request delivered to the seller and agreed on by the deadline date. I'm going to say that again. Your inspections and your repair request and an agreeable plan of attack moving forward all have to be agreed on by the deadline date, or you as the home buyer buy the home as is. Well, you have a couple different options, but we'll go over those in a second. So as you're going through your inspections, because now everything is technically on the chopping block, I want to make sure that buyers, this is a very important note for you. It is your job, if you are asking for concessions, that means a reduction in the price or credits, it is your job to get the estimates before you actually go ahead and ask for those concessions. All of this has to be handled and managed during your inspection period. With the due diligence deadline, there also comes it's not a new thing. I guess termination fees have always been there if you utilize the due diligence route when writing a contract. With the termination fee, this is a separate fee that is paid directly from the buyer to the seller outside of the agents or the escrow attorneys. This is paid directly from the buyer to the seller if the buyer decides unilaterally to terminate the contract. The word unilaterally is very important for you home sellers because a buyer under due diligence can at any point in time choose to terminate their contract with you, and all they have to do in order to do so is deliver to you that termination fee. Again, this is a separate fee paid outside of the contract. So, agents, if you are watching this, I don't know why, you should already know this stuff. Make sure you guys are collecting that money up front, maybe via like a personal check or something you hold on to, or maybe you have them hold on to it and keep it with them. Because if something comes up and you're holding the bag, there's a lot of liability, but that's a whole separate video for a whole separate other channel. Now, it's important to know that once you have submitted as the buyer, once you have submitted your repair request and it has been officially signed by the seller, it is officially a ratified repair request, you are no longer inside of your due diligence period. It doesn't matter whether you did it a week early or 3 days early, it doesn't matter. The second that repair request is ratified, it's over. Due diligence is ended. You can no longer unilaterally decide to terminate a contract. So you're essentially buying the home. Now, for some of you, it's also important to note that the termination fee cannot be taken out of the earnest money deposit. So for example, if I, on a particular contract purchasing 123 Easy Street, decide to give a seller $5,000 in earnest money, I really want to show them that I'm dedicated and I want to put some skin in the game. If for whatever reason I decide to terminate my contract at that point, I then will pay a separate fee to the seller with my money. I cannot say, let's say it's $1,000 termination fee. I cannot take my $5,000, negotiate for that $5,000 to become $4,000, giving the seller $1,000, and take my money. Nope. I have to give the seller $1,000 separate from the earnest money deposit and then get back my $5,000 earnest money deposit. Things are about to get crazy. Okay, during that due diligence time period, if you are anticipating, this is especially critical for the buyers and the buyer's agents out there, so make sure your agent is tracking this deadline. If for whatever reason you're kind of thinking you're dealing with a seller that is going to be late to respond, make sure that you are actively, you are doing things in a timely manner. If that seller, for whatever reason, does not respond, you need to terminate during that due diligence time period so that you're not stuck buying that home as is. During that due diligence time period, there are a number of things that the buyer and seller have to be aware of, and I'm gonna lay those out somewhere over the top of my head so you guys can see them out loud. Now, number one, there are 5 of them. Number one, the buyer has the ability to conduct any and all inspections. Obviously, this is always recommended, but it's important to note this is the first step in the due diligence process. Once the inspections have been completed, step 2 is going to be that you deliver to the seller a repair request. Now, like I mentioned earlier or mentioned after this, depending on how I edit this, it's important to note that those repair requests have to be delivered and ratified to the seller before your due diligence period ends. That is going to be critical. So make sure your agent is on top of the listing agent if they are not. Number 3, as the buyer, you can proceed under that new amended contract, whether you're asking for concessions or you are changing things for the repairs or giving them time to do the repairs and all that stuff. For sellers, cliff note, you do not have to have the repairs completed during the actual due diligence time. You have plenty of time after that, but we'll get to that in a second. So number 4 is going to be you can proceed forward as is, purchasing that property, moving on, and we all know how that ends. You buy the house, you live in the house, make wonderful memories. One of the other big things though is if for whatever reason you are not happy with the inspections, you're not happy with the repair request and what was agreed to or not agreed to for that matter, you can then, by delivering a notice of termination and your termination fee to the seller, terminate that contract, go back out into the open market and find a new home. So that's important to note. Let's say you're dealing with a really unique situation where for whatever reason you're feeling like, hey, we have more inspections, we want to do septic tank inspections, we want to do a full thorough roof inspection. Let's say, for example, there are water spots in the attic, but we don't have an active leak kind of going on, but we need more time. You can request an extension of the due diligence period. But again, I'm going to keep saying it because I feel like I've said it like 15 times already. I should do like a 15-time counter. It's important to remember that must be delivered, signed, and agreed to by and way before the due diligence deadline. Do not wait to the last minute. There has never been a more time is of the essence clause in a contract than when you're going due diligence. Keep that in mind. How do I think this is going to affect the Charleston market? Well, this is definitely important. So if you are a buyer, watch this next part. If you're a seller, skip to the chapter that I've placed in the video so you can kind of see specifically what I'm talking about in regards to what you should be looking for in a contract. If you are an active buyer, I do believe that the termination fee is going to be a big a big part of the negotiation process. I do believe that the more money you're offering towards the due diligence termination fee will show sellers and listing agents that you are more serious about purchasing this home. But it's important to note, do not throw some random willy-nilly number up there. Let's say, for example, if I know I only have $7,000 and that's my earnest money, I probably shouldn't tell them, oh, I'll give you $10,000 if I terminate a contract, because then I'm going to be on the bag for a $10,000 check should I try to terminate this contract or decide to terminate unilaterally. That is just what it is. When you're doing your inspections, I would still, and I'm sure you guys are doing them now, when you're conducting your inspections, try to be realistic. A lot of times what I'm noticing is, especially in the contracts I primarily do listings, what I'm noticing is a lot of buyers get wrapped around small, menial things that can really be handled with a screwdriver and a generic handyman. Those things, in my opinion, you should probably leave off of the repair request, especially if you're going to be asking for a lot of the bigger items to either be repaired or compensated for via either refunds, credits, or concessions. Be very mindful of that. One of the other big things is, and this is the most important piece, is your communication with your agent, or the communication you guys are having moving into the process is, in my opinion, going to be probably one of the most important parts. And the reason why I say that, if we are looking to see homes and we're having trouble getting on the phone together, I'm having trouble, scheduling showings, getting appointments done, those things are going to be super critical. Time is of the essence. If for whatever reason, and I want to make sure you guys really hear this particular part, if for whatever reason you do not get your inspections done, you don't get your repair requests handled, and you don't have that stuff delivered to the seller and agreed upon by the due diligence deadline date, after that, you are essentially screwed. Well, not really screwed, but now you're buying a house as is and you have no way out, technically. Now, while I'm talking to the buyers, if for whatever reason you're wondering, well, Terrence, what if financing falls through and I can't afford the home? Will the seller still get my termination fee? The answer is no. There are still a number of contingencies that you can use, and I'm not going to say use them to get out of a contract, but use them to get out of a contract if something is terrible or something is bad and you need to get out of a contract. There are ways that you can do that. Speak with your agent about the number of different contingencies that are found in that contract, and I'm sure you will use them if you need to get out of a contract. So that's important to know. One of the other things that for the buyers is really going to be really important. I, as a listing agent, will be on the lookout. I don't think, while you should offer large amounts for due diligence, I also don't think you're going to get away with offering low amounts, $100, $500, because the truth of the matter is this: having the ability to unilaterally walk away from a contract is a very big piece of the contract. It's a very big power play. At any point in time, if I as a seller don't do something you like, you can terminate on me. I want to make sure you have some skin in the game and you're going to kind of feel the pain, quote unquote. So yes, as a listing agent myself, I would recommend that as a buyer, you do try to put, whatever you can comfortably afford, that if you needed to terminate, you could walk away and not feel like you were just robbed. That's important. For my sellers, again, this contract change is going to be, in my opinion, kind of detrimental. Just today, actually, I had a agent of mine who called me and said, hey, I've got this repair request. Let's go through it together. And from my knowledge, it was quite a long list of things that were wrong. Now, the house was built in the 40s, so, naturally, it makes sense that some things would not be up to par. But as a listing agent and working with sellers, I think it's really, it can be scary when they have that inspection report. You never know what to expect. And then having this now, with repair procedure, there were just a few items that they could request, right? The big 9. Now everything's up for grabs. If they want your curtains, if they want your petunias, if they want you to pick up dog poop. Yes, I've had an agent who was buying the house as well really go to bat over, oh, there's dog poop in the backyard, I'm going to lose my mind. Now, these are all going to be small things. What I think we should be looking for if we are working together to help you sell your home, one of the big things I think we should be looking for in our multiple offers, which are still happening in this low inventory market. Cue plug for one of my videos talking about the inventory and whether you should sell in the spring. One of the big things I will personally be looking for will be a sizable termination fee. Now, what I mean by sizable, I do not mean, this is just me telling you what I'm going to be looking for. What I mean by sizable, I do not mean that you should be looking for $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 termination fees. I don't think those are going to be realistic. However, I will tell you, in my opinion, at minimum, somewhere around, your mortgage payment is probably what I'm looking for. So if I bug out or a buyer backs out of a contract on us, I probably would be looking to maintain at least like, hey, your mortgage was paid by that buyer for that month. Let's get you back on market, get you multiple offers again, and get you, hopefully, fingers crossed, more money. Now, that's an option there. Could it happen? Maybe. What I will tell you is if we are at a place where we're getting offers that are coming in with termination fees that are incredibly low, we would probably try to negotiate that up to make sure that you're compensated if that buyer decides to walk away. I don't think, this was one of the big things that came up when I first talked about this. I don't believe that home sellers should be overly worried it's going to be some new tactic that buyers are using to get out of contracts. Oh, they can just walk in and out whenever they please. I still believe that every buyer has a specific specific need, and if that need is met by the home that you own that they have agreed to purchase, I don't think they would readily run around and jump out of that, especially in this market where listings aren't as readily available. So I do believe that we're not going to see that too often. Now, my sellers, please do me a favor. And I don't believe you would do this, but let's just have a conversation anyway. Please don't be that seller who is overly hardcore about not doing repairs, not making adjustments, not offering concessions, not reducing the sales price simply because they see a number. Let's just say, again, let's say your mortgage payment is $3,000. Let's say, you decide, well, I don't want to pay my mortgage this month, so I'm going to take this buyer's $3,000. Please do me a favor. I hope I never run into that. I don't believe that there are a lot of sellers out there in the low country specifically that would do that, but let's just pretend that evil exists in the world. Let's not get to a place where we're getting greedy and try not to. Just as long as you're being negotiable, I think that we will be able to get this. And I think as long as you are being open to making some necessary repairs and communicating with your agent, whether it's me or someone else that you choose in the market, make sure that you're open and communicable and negotiable. That way we can have a smooth process and smooth transaction. With that said, one of the big theories that I'm personally going to keep an eye on is, what is this going to stop buyers from putting multiple offers out there? And if for whatever reason this buyer, Johnny, wins 7 offers, can he now just up and terminate? Technically, the answer is yes. Now, what I would hope, and I think this is kind of communication between myself and the buyer's agent at that time, is that Johnny's being trained and coached and made sure that he knows putting multiple offers on homes is probably never a good idea, and simply doing so to lose $500 to $1,000 to $1,500, or in our case $3,000 every single time, that's going to get costly. So I don't anticipate we'll see that in the market, but it is important to note. So with that said, guys, that is the video on the due diligence process. I hope I explained it well. There might still be some questions. If there are, whether you're seeing this on YouTube or Facebook, drop a comment below. I probably missed a bunch of things that were, the class that we took was ultimately almost like a 30-minute to a 40-minute class, and I've tried to break it down into maybe 5-10 minutes. I'm not sure what my time is right now. So if there are questions, if you do have any concerns, definitely feel free to drop them in the comment section. If you have not done so, please do me a favor, like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you can get some of this content. My hope is that I continue to drop you guys awesome nuggets like these and help you make your dream of home ownership and hopefully I can make your dream of home ownership a reality. So if you guys need me, my contact information is below. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thanks.